This meeting will now come to order. The clerk will please call the roll.
Mayor Carlett.
Here.
Vice Mayor Edwards.
Here.
Councilmember Patena.
Here.
Councilmember Bensbacher.
Here.
Councilmember Finn.
Here.
Councilmember Hunt.
Here.
And Councilmember Leone.
Here.
Good evening and welcome to the Peoria City Council's special meeting of February 21st, 2017. The consent agenda consists of one item this evening, and that is authorization to hold an executive session. I have received no request to remove anything from consent. Council, any comments? Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
All right, Council, please vote. And it is unanimous. We are adjourned to executive session.
And Councilmember Leone.
Yeah.
Thank you. Good evening and welcome to the Peoria City Council special meeting of September 7th. Did I say that? February. It's just February.
What are you reading?
Let me put my glasses on. How's that? We have two items on our study session agenda tonight, but we're going to first start with the update on the International Property Maintenance Code. Mr. Swenson.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Carlett. That's exactly right. The first item is an update, and you'll recall a little less than a year ago, the council, in a study session similar to this, directed the staff to be more purposeful in how we were enforcing the property maintenance of the city. And you'll recall a bit after that in the budget process, we added some additional funds and an additional FTE, full-time equivalent employee, to help implement the direction to be more purposeful in the enforcement. I think we've succeeded in doing that, and tonight you'll get an overview and a presentation and update on the status of that program. And so with that, I'll turn it over to Susan DeLuden, who's been the leader of this, Deputy City Manager. I think she likes to refer to herself as the sponsor of this interdepartmental committee that's working on this, and she'll introduce the subject and the speakers.
Thank you, Mr. Swenson, and good evening, Mayor and Council members. Yes, I'm proud to be the sponsor of this stellar team. There's more team members behind us this evening because it truly has been an interdepartmental effort. But this has been a pilot program, and we promised to come back and report in a year. It's a little less than a year, but as we're looking forward to the budget and whether we ought to continue the program, what changes we might need, or what input, we thought it'd be a good time to report. Quality of life is the cornerstone of the City Council policy goals. I see this landing firmly in the quality of life region of the goals, but also in the area, as the city manager mentioned, of enhanced services, because this code was never previously used by the city. The International Property Maintenance Code is a companion code to the building code. There are several companion codes, and it's usually up to the city policymakers to give us direction when they want to use them. We also will be having a building code update here in the near future where the building department will be talking about our code. So I'm not going to go too much into that, but I wanted to talk to you about our learning process and how the team has worked together. and how within the goal of quality neighborhoods is the goal of maintaining clean, high quality, well-maintained homes in our neighborhoods. And by doing that, we have to work with the enforcement mechanism to ensure that private properties are maintained using our building codes, our legal mechanisms, and our code enforcement. It's always a nice balance between the three, because each has a strong and important role. The team has convened monthly and sometimes more to address property issues, and Jay will go over the review that we did and how we went citywide to select the properties and the various states of improvements that the properties are in. A dozen of them were identified, although when we came to the study session last year, we said we thought we might be able to get through 6 within a year. Well, we're not at a year yet, and I think we'll do better than that. The implementation has had a strong compliance by the property owners, and it's had a strong and good reception from the neighbors. Because when you improve a property, not only does it actually help the property owner, because their property becomes more developable, saleable, but it helps the neighborhood around, because the neighborhood, which could tip into decline because of these vacant, abandoned, and unsafe properties, then can turn around and begin to clean up. So that's the theory that we've been working on, and I think it has been a holistic process, and I think the property owners, for the most part, have been quite cooperative, despite what you might have read in the press or heard otherwise, because they've done a good job. And Jay will report on that. So as we update on the specific results of our code review and the new initiative implemented last year on blighted, vacant properties that have been abandoned, primarily in terms of building upkeep and safety. We weren't working with people or homes that people were living in. These were only vacant properties, and our real goal was to improve the neighborhood. So with me tonight to share in that presentation are 3 key team members. Jay Davies, Deputy Director of the Management Services for the Police Department. Robert Goodhue, Deputy Director of Development for Engineering Department. And David Benton, who we really couldn't have done this without, seriously, our Assistant City Attorney and our City Attorney's Office to keep us always doing the right thing. Many other members of our team are back there, and I thank them all for their participation. With that, Jay, would you like to go through our progress report and update?
So, well, thank you, Susan. Good evening, Council and Mayor. Let's get started here. More specifically, the 2 council goals that we saw closely associated with this project were community building, preserving and expanding quality of life, as well as the total planning goal. I always do that. Can you hear me okay? Susan mentioned some of the team members. We also worked with Dennis Chase, the building official, Karen Imig, the community assistance manager, myself and Michael Bruni, the fire prevention inspector supervisor. Each member of the team played a critical role in covering their area of safety and opportunity and expertise, and it was really a well-oiled machine moving forward. As mentioned, we came before you last March to discuss this, really not knowing exactly what direction it would take, but by the time we were done, we realized that we had the available tool that we needed, and that was the IPMC. Basically, the IPMC provides us the basis to address unsafe structures, and that's what this is really all about, is identifying those structures that, whether they've been abandoned so long or neglected or maybe damaged by fire, that they're just no longer safe, and that they need to be addressed. And the IPMC gives us the tool to do that. From there, we set out to identify the properties that we would begin addressing with this tool. Members of the cross-functional team drove across the city from the northernmost reaches to the southernmost and identified houses as we saw them from obvious states of basically blight, from bad roofs, walls, board-up homes, anything that jumped out at us as being potentially unsafe, knowing that we would ultimately do a more in-depth inspection. From there, we looked at those homes, looked at the code history on those homes to see what, if any, violations we've addressed previously. We also checked these homes against the historic registry to make sure we weren't dealing with any historically significant properties. And in the end, we ended up with a list of 12 homes, and again, from all across the city, north to south, and the downtown area as well. From there, we prioritized them based on the apparent safety conditions, and then move forward. As with any code process, due process is afforded to anybody who's involved. So we started out with the initial code advisory, letting the owners know that we saw apparent safety violations that we wanted to address and to further inspect. We requested consent inspections from those owners. Those inspections we intended to do with the presence of the owners being on site, and in the vast majority of the cases, owners exercised that and chose to be present for those inspections. Also throughout that process, as we do in any code case, we would extend deadlines, adjust timeframes, work with these owners to make sure that we were honoring their commitments, their schedules, their busy lifestyles as well. So throughout the process, we've actually had pretty good communication with the owners, some give and take, and ultimately ended up with what you'll see as a lot of voluntary compliance. Moving through the process, once we set up the inspections, we worked with a third-party engineering firm. They would actually come in and conduct the inspections. From there, they would issue a report to building safety. That report would itemize the safety violations that they found, reference those to the International Property Maintenance Code, and then we would issue a notice detailing those to the owner. Those notices would include information on how to appeal, a little bit about the process, what their rights were and how they could exercise those rights. And then ultimately, the notices would follow the third-party engineering firm recommendation in terms of whether to repair or demolish the building. So getting a little more specific, of the 12 homes that we identified, one was sold early on, really before we even issued a notice. It was sold, and the new owner chose to demolish that house independently of any action by us. A second home, before, again, we could issue any notices, we learned that it had an open permit. They were repairing some extensive fire damage, and that one was already underway, again, under the volition of the owner. The next 9, after the inspection process, they were designated to be demolished. Of those 9, 6 as of today have been demolished. 2 of those are pending final deadlines. The owners are working with us, and they're well within their prescribed timeframes to demolish those properties. 1 of these 9 is pending appeal. And then in addition to the 9 that were designated to be demolished, a 10th home, which was only ordered to be repaired, the owner actually chose to demolish it on his own. He was ordered to repair, but he chose to demolish. So to date, this effort has resulted in 7 homes being demolished. Actually, 11, if you count the one before we really won't take credit for that one. But there are 11 homes have been demolished, 2 more pending final deadlines, and 1 under appeal. So quite a bit of progress in just really this 6 months. Going through those properties real quickly, this is one of the 2 that remains to be demolished. Again, the owner's working with us. He's well within time frames, working to get that taken care of. This property is the one that was actually ordered to be repaired, but the owner took it upon himself to demolish it, and that's what we see today. This one comes from the north part of the city, way up in Lake Pleasant Estates. This is a home that was nearly demolished on the inside from a fire, and today it's ready to accept a new build. This is one of the more recent ones to be demolished. The owner's actually still working on cleaning up the debris. And at this point, I'll point out that these cases are not closed or complete until that debris is gone. That's part of the order, is to demolish the home if that's what's ordered, and then to remove all of the debris. So there's a couple homes, and you'll see some that actually have more debris than this, even though they've been around a little longer. But just know that our case isn't done, our work isn't done until these parcels are cleared. You can just make out the roll-off dumpster to the right of this photo. This was one of the earlier homes to be demolished over on Jefferson. He still has a little bit of work to do, but again, with the roll-offs there, he's working on it. They do, and that's part of the initial notice. In general, because you have to obtain a permit to do the demolition, we gave them about a 30-day window to obtain the permit, and then another 30 days to do the work, get the debris removed. This is another home from the north part of the city, also fire damaged, and this is the second home that is still within the time frames. We've given him a deadline, and he's been cooperating with us and working towards that deadline. This is the home that was purchased before we really started issuing notices, and the owner took it upon themselves to take that one down. That's what it looks like today. This home was also demolished early on. This owner was very quick to show us voluntary compliance, took down the home, and actually did a really good job of cleaning that lot up, one of the nicer looking lots in the project. This is the home that I mentioned had a permit open for repairing fire damage, and today you really wouldn't know that it was even under repair. This one's located actually in the Pine District down south. This house over on Monroe was the first one to receive a notice to demolish. Interestingly enough, the owner sold it after our inspection. The new owner inherited this process, and yet he cooperated. He did end up demolishing the home. This is another parcel where work remains. We're still working with him to get this debris cleared up. It's something we're monitoring very closely and keeping on top of that. It's not happened as quickly as we would have liked, and we're on top of that one. This one has been demolished, another downtown property. Interesting story about this one. I happened by the day I saw workers out working on this, and they explained that they weren't there to demolish it, but as they went inside this, what used to be a store, a market, they began removing shelves. And as they were taking stuff out of the building, turns out the insides were holding the outside up, and the entire thing collapsed around them as they were removing the inside. Dangerous. Fortunately, nobody was injured. It had a very good outcome, saved them a lot of money in demolition costs, but it really does illustrate how dangerous, some of these buildings are. From appearances in the before photo, it looks like a masonry structure. What could really be wrong with it? But we saw a lot of cracks in the surface. The roof was deteriorating, and sure enough, as a unstabilized masonry building, it didn't take much for it to come down. And today it looks like that. The slab remains part of what needs to come out. They're still working on a separate contractor to deal with that. Interestingly, they've also put this lot up for sale, so they're beginning to turn that over as well. So in terms of results, as mentioned, we experienced tremendous voluntary compliance with this effort. If you recall from last year, our request was for budget funds to fund the demolitions. And as of today, we haven't had to spend any money on the demolitions. All of the owners voluntarily complied and bore those costs themselves. What we have had to expend funds on are the engineering inspections, but because those cost less than the demolitions, we've been able to do more homes than we originally budgeted for. Again, we planned to do 6 homes, but as of this time, we've actually surpassed that goal with 9, and we're only a little bit more than halfway through the year with still some that we're working on. So we're very pleased with those results. We hope that you are too. Again, we tout the teamwork. This was really this cross-functional team. Having never really entered this process before, we got up to speed very quickly. We did certainly learn a lot. We had to kind of adjust on the fly and make some process improvements as we went, but I think we've got this down, and it's working very well at this point. The benefits, as you can see from most of those after pictures, we've removed hazards. And again, that's the number one goal. In each of these cases, these were homes, you can call them blight, you can talk about neighborhood aesthetics and all of that, but when it comes right down to it, these are dangerous structures. And nothing illustrates that more than the house that came down simply by removing what was inside. But in addition to removing hazards, we're improving neighborhood aesthetics, we're minimizing repeat efforts by code enforcement and building safety, and then, of course, enhancing neighborhood livability as well. Even though our original project was focused on residential properties, we also realized that this same process does apply to commercial properties. It's the same set of standards and regulations. And with that, we decided to look at a couple of commercial properties as well. We're early in the code process with 2 such properties. The Edwards Hotel up there, we've issued notices to them and are working with them towards resolving the matters there. And we also have a case open under the IPMC for the Peoria Regional Medical Center up north. So moving forward, next steps, we will be requesting one-time funds again for fiscal year 18 to continue the residential portion of this project. We'll go out again, identify a whole new set of residential properties that appear unsafe and go through the same process. Meanwhile, we will continue steps to address commercial properties as we identify those. And with that, we're happy to take any questions that you have.
Thank you. What a great report. Council, any questions or comments? Councilmember Hunt?
Well, thank you to everyone who worked on this. This is an amazing project, and I think you guys were all even surprised with how quickly it came together. It was long overdue. No one's fault. It just was long overdue, and it was past time, and I think that's why it came. I think people needed an excuse kind of to do what they should have been doing anyway. So kudos to everyone involved. You guys got on it. You worked quickly. You had a plan, and the plan ran smoothly, and we're seeing the results. Can you go back one slide, please? Okay, I just have a question because I'm concerned about a couple of boarded up businesses, commercial, whatever you want to call them. So I'm a little confused about you're seeking more funds for residential, and that's fine, but are you also seeking more funds for some commercial buildings, or you say continue steps to address commercial properties? I'm just a little confused as to what that means.
Thank you, Councilmember Hunt, Mayor and council members. That's a really good question. The amount that we're putting in the budget continues the pilot program. We're recommending continuing the pilot program, which is residential. What we've been trying to do with the commercial is address it on a case-by-case basis as council members or members of the public, although we haven't had many of those, actually report them to our city manager's office or to the police department. So we will, you gave me a few addresses, and if there are additional concerns of any of you in your neighborhoods or areas, one of the reasons we're coming tonight is to find out kind of the scope to see what we should be budgeting for. And in many cases, if these are areas that the council wants to further direct, we'll need to put one-time funds, likely to address those commercial structures, especially the larger ones that we have been working on. But some of the smaller ones, neighborhood commercial that you're looking at, I think we can pop that into our process.
Yeah, I know you guys will accomplish it. I guess I just don't understand the differentiation between the money that you're asking for, and if there's no money allocated specifically for commercial, I guess I get a little nervous that when I come to you, you'll say, well, there's no money allocated for commercial, and so too bad. So
I think why we have these study sessions is so that the city manager and myself and budget, we can look at what the council is looking for in the next years. That's how this program started. And although you don't give direction in a study session, you give indications of interest. And that's why we're doing it early on as we enter the budget process.
Yeah, and I'll add a little bit to that, Councilmember Hunt. Obviously, we're interested in how the council feels about the program, what your reaction is to the presentation. As Susan mentioned, if you have properties that you would like us to look at anywhere in your district, let Susan know, and we'll look at those. And if it turns out that we see a substantial program in the commercial arena, we're able to put funds there in the coming budget as well, and also on a case-by-case basis, because sometimes as we get into the abatement process on a commercial building, a larger property, the first course of action is to get the property owner to actually address the problem. And it may be that through those enforcement mechanisms we can get compliance without it actually costing the city direct dollars. On other cases, we might run all the way through the legal process and get into an abatement where we actually have to do the demolition and then lien the property for that money in the future. And so it really depends on the circumstances of each individual property as to how much that might cost. So I hope that's helpful.
Thank you, Carl. And
did you have further questions,
I
Ms.
wanted to know if there were other additional questions.
Well, I just hope that when I come, and I've already pointed out a couple to Susan, that there is money, I guess, for whatever it takes to take care of these. Because I'm still a little confused about the money trail there, but I trust you guys. So I know you're the government and you're here to help me. So
Well, thank you.
I feel better about
Thank you,
that.
but let me try to ease your mind. So if let's say a property is identified and is blighted or deteriorating, and so the first thing we will do is try to get compliance with the code from the property owner. Now, if that fails, then we will go into the legal process, and only at that point will we be able to know how much it might cost at the end of that legal process for the city to actually demolish the property. It might be a modest amount, in which case the budgetary request would be small. It might be a substantial amount if it's a large building, in which case then the dollar amount would be significant, and we would come back to the city council and say, are you comfortable with spending this much money to demolish this particular property at the end of that enforcement action? So I don't want to be not answering your question, but it really does depend on the circumstance of what we find when we get into that.
Okay, so it would fall under the same as the hospital skeleton up north,
That's right.
and the market downtown wasn't really ever lived in. So it would, the market that the Aguayo property that they did take down, it was never, it was always commercial and then just storage. So those were addressed. So
Yeah, that was smaller neighborhood commercial.
Right, and I think the ones I have brought to you would be considered nothing as big as that hospital skeleton, for sure.
Yeah.
So,
And we
okay.
will be addressing that in the very near future
Okay, I'm satisfied.
with council.
Council, any further comments?
It's an amazing program.
Yeah, it is a great program, and thank you. You took the spirit of what our direction was, and you moved forward with it quickly and efficiently. Wow, we're really impressed. Thank you.
It's very fast for us.
Thank you.
It's amazing.
Thank you very much for your comments. We'll come back with a report during the budget process.
Thanks. Okay, we have one more item on our study session agenda, and that is transportation update.
And as we're changing out the speakers here, I'll introduce this subject, Mayor. While it says transportation, obviously that's a potentially very broad subject. They're going to drill down more on the transit piece of transportation. So as you all know, it's been a priority for the city to improve our transit operations in the city. Bus routes, circulators, things of that nature, and they're going to update you on the status of the program. And with that, I'll turn it over to Jeff Tyne, our Deputy City Manager.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Swenson, and good evening. Good to see you all. So the presentation we will give tonight is more of an update on a presentation we gave to all of you back in December 2015 on our transit operation. And just as a quick reminder, our mission for our transit services is to provide both affordable and accessible transportation to all Peoria residents, but it's also to connect ourselves to the broader Maricopa County region as well. And we do that in a variety of different transit options. That includes commuter and local bus service through what we call our fixed routes, and that fixed route service helps to connect residents to various employment corridors, shopping, and recreational amenities. We also offer dial-a-ride service. That is geared to primarily those that are in need of special services. So, for example, senior citizens or those with disabilities that are needing to reach their terminus without excess physical strain. And in addition to that, we now recently are involved, the city, with the regional participation in the paratransit, the regional paratransit service, and that offers more of a seamless transport across borders here in the Phoenix region. So given our unique geographic boundaries here in Peoria, that creates its own set of circumstances and challenges. So tonight, what we want to do is really two things, and that was to offer you kind of an assessment of our recent activities and how they've affected our operation, and then going forward to outline some of the planned initiatives that we see that could enhance the transit experience for Peoria residents, and we really would look forward to your feedback to some of those. So with that, I'll pass it over to our Public Works and Utilities Director, Stuart Ken.
Hi, Council, good evening. Thank you, Jeff. Again, as Jeff alluded to, today's presentation will focus on two things. Primarily, just a baseline level of what our current transit services are, and then secondly, we'll discuss some planned improvements and seek council input and guidance on those improvements. Our current services are really, as Jeff just alluded to, function around three fundamental service areas. One is our Dial-A-Ride program. Dial-A-Ride is provided through a fleet of 7 passenger vehicles. We provide a total of nearly 32,000 trips a year to Peoria residents. And that is provided through the buses as well as cabs that we engage through Valley Metro to provide when our buses are overloaded with service demands. Fixed route service, which includes service on the Grand Avenue Limited, which provides commuter service directly into downtown Phoenix, as well as routes along Peoria Avenue, Thunderbird Road, and 67th Avenue, are funded through Valley Metro and the regional sales tax that went into effect back in 1985 and was reauthorized by the voters in 2004. That has seen growing ridership each year. Each of those routes have. And we believe one of the challenges with those routes, as we currently, and Jeff just alluded to, is that we're missing, that we'll talk about in a little bit, is a north-south connector. Right now, our 2 east-west routes help service a portion of the community, but there isn't the spine at this point that connects them. But we are going to have some positive news about how that's going to change coming this fall. Finally, as Jeff alluded to, regional paratransit service is new, just started in July of 16, and it assists ADA certified riders with getting from one Valley city to another without having to make transfers. Previously, they would get on a Dial-A-Ride bus, ride to, for Sagamore if they wanted to get to Phoenix, ride to our shared boundary with Glendale at 67th Avenue. Glendale Dial-A-Ride bus then picks them up, takes them to the Phoenix boundary. Phoenix then picks them up, take them to their end destination in Phoenix. Then they repeat the process coming back. Well, when you talk about trying to coordinate 3 different providers, you know, a trip that any of us might drive and take 30 minutes might be an hour and a half or 2 hours each way. So this was really a regional effort. All the Valley cities are participating, and it has been wildly successful so far. Peoria residents in 5 months have taken over 1,100 trips outside the city using this service, going to other parts of the community. It will ultimately probably create some additional funding challenges for the region because the service has been so popular. We're going to have to work through it, but it's now provided seamless service. So now a cab comes, picks up the resident in Peoria, takes them to their end destination, whether that's Phoenix or Tempe or Mesa or wherever else, and then picks them back up. So they get in once, they get back out once, and the trip takes as long as it would for you or I driving a vehicle. The planned improvements that we really want to focus most of our presentation on focus on 4 key issues or projects. One is the construction of the park and ride lot and the relocation of the existing lots that we have. The second is the extension of the 83rd Avenue bus route, that north-south spine I mentioned a moment ago. Third will be enhancing shade and bus stop improvements. And the fourth is a circulator route. So I'll touch on each of those as we go through. The park and ride lot, and this was an item that we had briefed, my predecessor, Bill Mattingly, and I had briefed you all on in December of last year, December 15, I should say, pardon me. Essentially involves relocating the existing park and ride lot, which is really 2 lots on either side of 84th Avenue at Washington, and moving it to one central location on the north side of Grand Avenue. The advantage of this location will, 1, provide immediate connection to now 3 bus routes. Ultimately, the 83rd Avenue route, the Peoria Avenue route, and the Grand Avenue Limited will all be able to access that park and ride because it's centrally located right there. It will also allow bus service as it goes through on Grand Avenue to not have to deviate off Grand. It's not having to go through Old Town Peoria, then get back out onto Grand Avenue and go. It essentially is making one seamless set of left turn, then a series of right turns back onto Grand and taking off. The new park and ride will be roughly the same number of spaces as the current 2 lots, which is about 75 spaces. It'll have covered parking, which the current lots don't, which will be a nice amenity as well. And we expect that facility to open in the summer of 19. In fact, we are doing our first open house for that project tomorrow night at the community center from 6 to 7:30. So as my voice carries the airwaves, hopefully we'll get some additional participation for that event. This is just a little bit of an overlay of what the site will look like. Again, the purple arrow shows the traffic coming in and around, the bus coming in and around. So the bus doesn't enter the lot, stays on the exterior, pulls it on a pull-out that'll be on the north side of the facility, and then come back out. It'll be the 2 restaurants that are both still there to the south and east will continue to be there. This is the former 7-Eleven site that we're looking to ultimately acquire and then place the lot at. The second planned service improvement is the 83rd Avenue bus route. Currently, the City of Phoenix operates bus service on 83rd Avenue from Van Buren to Camelback Road, essentially on 30-minute intervals, nearly 20 hours a day as a part of their recent transportation tax increase. The new service will then extend. Let's see if this works. Oh, look at the blue arrow move. Okay, that's the extent of my technology. So, but the blue arrow will then will extend the route through Glendale all the way to Bell Road in Peoria. The red line then indicating that route. So that will provide seamless connectivity through 3 communities from Bell Road and ultimately ending at the Arrowhead Transit Center on the north side of the mall, but coming all the way through and into Phoenix, connecting with literally 11 different east-west routes. So whether your business needs are in south, central, north, you'll be able to connect through this service. This was a route that was originally identified in the Regional Transportation Plan, however, was not able to be funded as a part of the recession. I'm happy to report that we've identified funds in the Peoria Transportation Sales Tax to fund this route now. The region has agreed to pick it up by 2024, but we are continuing to press them to have it happen sooner than that. They recognize that our expense, which will be about $1.2 million a year, is sizable, but this is creating a huge connectivity for our residents and, frankly, for many residents in the West Valley as well. Shade enhancements is the third of the 4 planned improvements that we mentioned earlier. Currently, we have 60 bus stops on the Peoria and Thunderbird routes. 7 of those stops have no shade. This is one of them in the area of 91st Avenue and Thunderbird. So it has a bench, has a trash can, but obviously no shade. And while this time of year might work for that, it certainly doesn't work in the better part of 6 months of the year. So we have identified a coordinated effort through the right sizing of the park and ride that I mentioned earlier, and combined with also deferring the transit center that was going to be part of that site that isn't needed at this point. We've identified $982,000 that can be Peoria dollars used to build shade both on these routes as well as on the route on 83rd Avenue. So that's how we are planning. We're planning to use that essentially as a 50-50 split. One of the things we'll work through with the 7 sites, and I'm going to show you some of the others in a moment, is that some are challenged just by having limited or no right-of-way, or neighboring properties and businesses that may not want a shade structure for fear of loss of being able to see either their signage or their business frontage. So we'll have to work through those issues, but our goal is to add shade to every one of the 7 first, then add better shade to the existing stops that we have on Peoria and Thunderbird, and then also add shade to the new route for Peoria and Thunderbird, and add new shade for 83rd. So here's an example of a bus stop. This is on 67th Avenue. And as you can see, we've got about 3 feet behind the back of the sidewalk to the wall. There's really not space there for a shade structure or anything else. We're already working with Valley Metro to see, do we move this bus stop a ways further actually south to where we can connect better with a shade opportunity. When it was placed there, it was probably placed at typically every quarter mile. And we're working with them now to determine, is the ridership really there to warrant it? Or if we move it, will it maybe get better ridership because then it has some shade and other amenities at the site?
You know, Stuart, real quick, I did want to mention something with regard to the shade initiative that was here. So much of that discussion and the concept that was brought forward was through the discussions of the Quality of Life Committee last year. And in that time, we had some very thoughtful residents that did presentations, were very moving, in fact, and inspired that group to put forward a recommendation for a shade initiative. And it wasn't just at bus shelters, but in various other spots. The initial proposed Proposition 400 did identify $3 million for a shade initiative. So the funding that we had identified here, this was something that we had talked about might be leveraged at that time, but the additional dollars for Prop 400, they are not something that we were able to undertake. So what we are doing is working with the existing resources we've identified just in the last year. So I want to make sure you are aware of that. This is not replacing the amount that was identified fully in Proposition 400.
And I would like to thank you for looking hard and trying to find some way to give some quality of life to people who are taking our buses. I mean, it's just not okay that they have to stand out there in 110-degree weather and not have any kind of shade, and those benches, when they're not covered, are hot. And even the people who are walking along the roads, we have to do a little bit better, and I really appreciate you looking for ways to do that. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So considering these are 2 sites along, one along Thunderbird on the left and on the right is on 67th near Sunnyside. So again, these are stops where they're partially complete. Both have shade though coming from nearby trees, not so much a shade structure dedicated to the site. And while that's beneficial, our approach has really been not to rely on trees as the provider of shades, but rather the structure on the bus stop. If trees or other structures are able to augment shade, that's great. But I don't think they initially should be dependent on a nearby tree to be able to get shade. So again, we're looking at both of these where we can either add, in the case of the one by the QT, adding a bench and adding a structure, and then on the one right, building a structure around the bench. I don't have all the history of why that one wouldn't have been there, because there's not a variety of other reasons why we wouldn't have had a shade structure there, but we're going to work to see if we can fix that.
And if I might interject, as we're looking to build structures around a bench, we might want to consider not just building the kind that we've done in the past, but look for a new and improved way, because those aesthetics that speaks to who we are as a city. Mm-hmm. Just putting, metal around it does not really express who we are in Peoria, I don't think. Maybe we were at one point, but we certainly are not now. Right. So let's look for ways that show the true character of our city.
You've hit on a point that we're going to show you in 2 slides from now, an example of a building a better birdcage, as it were, or mousetrap.
Not a birdcage.
Not a birdcage, yeah. So these are the current structures that we have. Just to provide context, the one on the left is one of the typical ones along Peoria Avenue, again, shade structure, also an advertising kiosk by it, because the structures were all built by CBS Advertising, so they cost the city nothing essentially to build them, and CBS put them in for the agreement to provide advertising. Similarly, the ones along Thunderbird are a little different. They're goldenrod in color as opposed to the beige. They also have a solar lighting component on top of the roof line. But again, a bench, a wastebasket, and again, an advertising kiosk.
It doesn't really cover the bench. If the sun moves,
And that,
it doesn't have sides.
Mayor, Councilmember Hunt, you've really hit on a key issue, is because the sun obviously rotates through the sky and at different times of the year, the shade could be as complete as the one on the left, but if it's low in the sun in your horizon in the morning, your shade option is almost hiding behind the structure. So we've been looking at a way to figure out how do we sort of create a 360-degree shade experience. So an option, but by no means the only option, is something recently that was developed that we just came across in the city of Scottsdale as they're working through it. This structure is obviously bigger because it's 2 benches. There's a bench behind the first shade component, the shaded area to the right, and there's a bench on the left. So it's providing shade in either direction, but it's about twice the size in terms of its footprint compared to the other locations. So we don't necessarily see this as the ideal solution for every location, but where we can fit them or figure out a smaller way to do it, we're looking at this sort of a structure. And then doesn't have advertising, which may be something we're ultimately seeking guidance if that's an amenity or not that we want to add. But it has a trash can. In this case, they even put a bike rack by it, so if you're taking your bike with you to go on the bus, you have somewhere to lean it against before the bus comes.
Vice Mayor?
Oh, thank you, Mayor.
Yes.
That's okay. Stuart, can you go back to that other slide? Thank you. Have we looked at the bench setup itself? I know on certain routes we have the benches being used for not bus purposes, more for homeless. And so are we looking at maybe putting to where they actually have individual seats where they've got the railing? And I'm sure you know what I'm talking about.
Yes, I do. Mayor, Vice Mayor Edwards, that's an excellent question. We do have situations at times, and we've actually retrofitted with CBS several bus stops in the community that become sleeping benches rather than seated areas, and doing exactly what you suggest, which is essentially putting in tubing and having it retrofitted so it creates 2 or 3 individual seats on it, much like the airport seating is done and everything else where it's harder to find a place to lay down, but it still provides a place for someone to sit down and have shades, yes. The other nice thing about these shade structures is if you're in a mobility device, you can be in shade necessarily without having to be sitting on the bench, and that's another key component we want to look at, is not only looking at all the types of users that may use the service and figuring out how to provide them shade as a part of it. The last planned improvement we wanted to talk about today is the circulator route. Again, we'd referenced this with the council back in December of 15, but I just wanted to sort of re-highlight what the plan and approach is. Again, the map we've outlined here in red shows the potential circulator route. It's by no means decided, and obviously we'd seek council guidance on any improvements or changes to that route. That route was identified primarily to show as an example. It's about 17 miles long, that entire loop, and covers obviously a number of corridors, including the Happy Valley Corridor, Lake Pleasant Parkway, and connects back through to 83rd Avenue. The other nice thing about the route is then connects back to, actually would go south of Bell Road, towards the ballpark and those things, but then connects back through to the transit center at Arrowhead Mall. So people taking the 83rd Avenue bus, if they wanted to, could get on the circulator to go further north and vice versa. There's a way to create that extension. This cost, as we developed last year, would cost approximately $675,000 a year to operate and another nearly $900,000 to buy the buses. So it's a fairly expensive proposition. Circulator routes across the valley are funded by the local agency. They're not regionally funded. We are continuing to try to work to figure out solutions and ways we can potentially accelerate this beyond the 5 to 7 year window that we've talked about previously with council. So that this again is that approach, and ultimately when we think we have a better funding source, we may come back and talk with council about options, but we'd certainly be happy to hear any comments or suggestions about the circulator route now. Is it too far north, not north enough? This route, as defined for what you get for $675,000 a year, was identified as 12-hour day service, 5 days a week.
Like 30 minutes.
And 30-minute intervals, 30-minute intervals. So it wouldn't necessarily, weekends would cost more. If we wanted to shift the hours around, we could do that. But that was just to provide a context of what $675,000 gets, is basically 6 to 6, 7 to 7 kind of service, 5 days a week.
And Mayor and Council, just to add a little bit to this, knowing it's a high priority for you, we're working to see if we can accelerate the schedule on this. It's something that you've had in your goals for some time, and as Stuart's outlined, it's a local funded facility, unlike some of the other regional facilities, but the staff are working on various options. So shortly we should be able to bring that to you, so how we can accelerate this.
Good, I appreciate that. And is there a revenue component to this? Or is that already calculated?
Mayor, the revenue component, one, the council would get to set the rate for the circulator. But typically, circulator routes are going to collect less than 10% in fare box revenue against the cost of the service. A number of the Valley cities have them, and they typically run anywhere between $1 and $3 to get on it. So bus service is $4. So, there are paradigms that provide guidelines about what fixed route service and everything else is. But it's probably pretty low relative to all things.
Okay. Yes, Councilmember Binswanger.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a great start. I think, and I know it's been a discussion that's been going on for a long time. With all the development that's going to be happening in the Mesquite District, north of Vistancia, north of the CAP, I think, obviously, in my mind, I feel like further north is going to be necessary, but it's all going to depend on the timing that this becomes a reality. And then park and rides, from being at a couple of meetings, that's come up in the Mesquite District several times. Those typically follow the transit system. Would park and ride be considered as part of a circulator route?
Mayor, Councilmember Binswanger, I suppose really anything is possible with the circulator. If it was the council's desire to build maybe at the furthest most northern point of the circulator route, a destination inn where people could park there and take it in, and we had either the land or had the cooperation of the landowners to do something, I imagine we could work through that. Typically, circulators are really used to augment and you hit it on the head, really on the existing transit service and provide connectivity to it. But if that was a desire, we could certainly look at that.
Thank you.
Yes, Councilmember Patena.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a question on a circulator. So the bus from Camelback to Bell Road will be running every half hour, correct?
Mayor, Councilmember Patena, yes. Every half hour, and it would, right now, the current service projected is 6 a.m. to 10 p.m., Monday through Friday, and then, let me double check, make sure I've got I'll make sure I've got the right time, so I referenced that. I'm sorry, 5 a.m. to 10 p.m. Monday through Friday on 30-minute intervals,
Okay.
and then 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. on Saturdays and Sundays at a 1-hour interval.
Okay, so will for the circulator to make a complete loop and come back to Bell Road, are you going to try to run that in tandem with every half-hour bus coming from Camelback to 83rd?
Mayor, Councilmember Patena, I don't know how seamless that will be. I don't know if we'll have literally a dial ride or a circulator bus stopping within 5 minutes of the fixed route service. I mean, I think we would try to time it as best we could to recognize that connection. The other thing that I probably should add is the circulator is really the council getting to draw on it up, almost like the redistricting conversation. If the conversation is we'd like to start something, but maybe start it smaller and then build relative to other issues in other parts of the community, that's certainly an option as well. The circulator can be really as big or as small as you want to do it, and it could also be phased. So maybe it's half this size to start, and then the next phase jumps, say, up to Vistancia. Or if you want to go all in, we can certainly work through those things. Don't need decisions today, but we appreciate the feedback because it helps us identify costs and what the opportunities are. And that's one of the circulator route that's identified here would be 5 buses. These are smaller buses, so bigger than a dial ride bus, smaller than a transit bus. And I would recommend that we would contract with Valley Metro or someone else to operate the service. It wouldn't be buses that we own out of our fleet going. We would contract with the service to do it.
I think this is really exciting. I just had one more comment, and that was with regards to the regular fixed route bus lines. And that is, as you've used all of these nice color coding on, to show where things are, I think that would be a great addition to our bus stops. If we could put directional signs, the color coding that shows which bus stop you're getting off on, which line you're on, so that can be coordinated all the way through the system, would really make a big difference to people riding.
Mayor, we can absolutely work through that. Valley Metro, because the bus stop signs at all the bus stops are very standardized, and it's a bit of a challenge. The 83rd Avenue route is also called Services 83rd Avenue. It makes sense. When you get into the the Peoria Avenue route, it's called Route 106. there's not a rhyme or reason for 106 necessarily. Other than it's the 10,600 block, but people aren't recognizing that necessarily as the reason. Similarly, the Thunderbird Road route is Route 138, the 13,800 block. So I think Valley Metro's made an effort, but I think we can certainly look to augment that signage to help you where you are and what routes connect here. We can absolutely look to do that.
Yeah, I think there's definitely room for improvement there. Yes, Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. Stuart, you mentioned on the 83rd fixed route, when was the start date for this?
Oh, thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor. I don't think I did say it. The 83rd Avenue route will start October of 17.
This year.
So 9 months from now, 8 months from now.
And so
Yeah.
to that point, I want to thank you and your staff, because I know when I go to the Valley Metro meetings, you guys are always there front and center pushing the best interests of Peoria and its residents. So thank you for everything that you guys are doing to get transportation to our area.
Thank you, Vice Mayor.
Yes, Councilmember Hunt.
And I may have missed it, but as far as the shade structures over where we need them, when will that start action? When will we start seeing some shade structures?
Mayor, Councilmember Hunt, I would anticipate we've budgeted and planned it for the FY18 fiscal year, so we need to work through the design details of every site. We're going to use a combination of our own engineering staff as well as Valley Metro to help us work through that. And our approach is we have 9 locations on 83rd Avenue that already have bus pullouts. The city, as they've been building complete streets, have added bus pullouts. So we want to target those. Those are typically at arterial corners. We want to target those for the bus stops for 83rd first, and then go from there. But the rest of the stops along Peoria and Thunderbird will continue to move forward with simultaneously.
Simultaneously, so you're going to be doing those at the same time. You're going to be doing Peoria Avenue at the same time you're doing 83rd.
Yes.
Okay.
Again, I want to add my thanks for this. It was discouraging when 400 didn't give us this money, but you guys have found a way and have soldiered through it. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. That's it?
That's all we have in study session this evening.
Okay. There being no further business, we are adjourned until our 7 p.m. meeting.
Hi, I'm Brandy. How are you guys?
A handshake, a sharp appearance, a well-thought-out resume. They can all help lead to a job. But young people between 16 and 24 are struggling to find their way in Maricopa County. 1 in 5 is considered to be disconnected youth.
And what are your weaknesses?
Brandy Graham of the Genesis program at Workforce Connections counsels this group on careers.
They feel misunderstood. I think the main thing to focus on is they need collaboration. There's lots of different agencies out there that offer lots of different things, but the agencies being able to collaborate and connect just doesn't seem to happen.
Graham was in this cavernous room of the Phoenix Convention Center helping dozens of young people. This was the Opportunity Fair and Forum.
It's a lot cooler than I expected, a lot bigger.
These young people can get a haircut, help with their resume, and interview tips before going into a real interview. 18-year-old Chris Johnson is looking for something better.
It's kind of harder than I thought it was going to be. I just recently graduated and I moved here on my own. So I've been trying to just figure things out for myself.
Unfortunately, we're living at a time right now where you got to ask yourself, is the American dream as alive and well?
Starbucks CEO Howard Schultz is a leader in the effort to get this group working or in school. Board of Supervisors Chairman Steve Chukri joined him on stage with business leaders from major companies.
And you see things like today that we're involved with, it really takes your breath away, and it not only encourages you to want to do more, it's a perfect capstone to yet just another great thing that Maricopa County does.
The county has been deeply involved with helping people in this age group find their way, but it has also helped bring together a strong local group of leaders that make sure we keep pushing forward and telling success stories like that of Jacob Tenney.
Like Starbucks, Pizza Hut, Papa John's, and I actually had an interview with Papa John's and I got a job.
We're here to dedicate this monument sign for the father of the Maricopa Trail, Andy Kanasik. As he is on his way out as county supervisor, it's completely fitting to dedicate this trailhead in his honor.
Through his connections, his fortitude, and just his love of Arizona and love of this area, I really do believe, Andy, that you're the only one that could have done what you've done. So.
Andy had been touring in Germany and noticed the wonderful trail systems that they had in Germany and said, you know, we can do better in Maricopa County.
It's because of his vision that we continue to sweep around Maricopa County with an awesome trail system, which will probably be one of those things that nationally Maricopa County will be known for.
The Maricopa Trail connects all of the county regional parks, but also as part of Andy's vision is he wanted to connect this trail also to neighborhoods and communities. A 310-mile loop trail system, and to date, we have that trail system 80% complete.
It is really kind of overwhelming to see the progress. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step, and we've made a lot of them over 19 years. So it's really kind of neat to see it. Somebody might park here at the trailhead, unload their horses, and ride out to have a long day ride out to Lake Pleasant. It's evolving, and people are finding ways to enjoy it.
Hi, I'm Walt Richardson. Tonight we feature three remarkable musicians who bring their own unique and enjoyable style to the Songwriters Showcase. Good evening and welcome to the Tempe Center for the Arts, home of the Songwriters Showcase. Our first artist brings an inspiring mix of country rock, folk, and bluegrass to the stage tonight. A founding member of the Blue Goats, John spends much of his time making music in the pines of northern Arizona and around the valley. Joined by his son Aaron on mandolin, I know you'll enjoy John Lehman.
Ever hoped for. You know this story, you heard it all before. When you're dancing with the devil, way down deep, you're gonna burn your feet.
I started writing from the moment I picked up the guitar and I could learn 3 chords. It's just what I wanted to do. I certainly learned other people's songs, but I just was just very interested in the songwriting process and you know, through the years, I've found that is just something that, you know, truly you lose track of time when I do that. And so it's usually a good indicator that it's something you love. And it's still that way today.
Dear love, walk, you better love her. Like you never been hurt. You better love her. Like you never been hurt. She tasted steel when the iron was hot. She taught me things that I never forgot.
The Mayor and City Council welcome you to the Peoria City Council meeting. As a courtesy to others, please silence all phones. If you would like to address an issue that is on the agenda, or if you would like to speak to the Council regarding a non-agenda item, please complete a speaker request form, which can be found in the front lobby of the Peoria City Council chambers or in the tray to the left of the speaker's podium. Please place the completed speaker request form in the second tray to the left of the speaker's podium labeled Request to Speak. All speakers will have 3 minutes to complete their comments. A countdown clock is easily visible on the left side of the wall behind the City Council dais. Only items listed on the agenda may be addressed by the Council. Since items presented as part of a speaker's request have not been listed on the agenda, and due to the requirements of open meeting laws, the Council will be unable to respond to items presented as part of the speaker's request. However, please be aware that your comments will be noted. The speaker's name will be called to speak at the appropriate time, in the order that the forms were received. Thank you for your interest and participation in the Peoria City Council meeting.
Peoria City Council meeting will now come to order. Please rise for a moment of quiet reflection and the Pledge of Allegiance led by Vice Mayor Edwards.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Clerk, please call the roll.
Mayor Carlett.
Here.
Vice Mayor Edwards.
Here.
Councilmember Patena.
Here.
Councilmember Binsbacher.
Here.
Councilmember Finn.
Here.
Councilmember Hunt. Here. Councilmember Leone.
Here.
Council Liaison Edwards.
Here. Good evening and welcome to the Peoria City Council meeting of February 21st, 2017. We will not be moving forward with our presentation this evening, so we're going to move on to the consent agenda. Council, are there any items to be removed from consent? Seeing none, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. And the consent agenda passes unanimously. We'll now move on to new business. This is item 19R, public hearing, minor general plan amendment, assured self-storage. And 20 is the rezoning of that same property. Mr. Swenson?
Chris Hawkes, our Planning Community Development Director, will make the presentation on these items.
Would you like to do both of these together and then we'll vote separately?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So we have two applications before you tonight. 19R is a minor general plan amendment, and 20R is a rezone. The cases have been filed by the applicant, VLC Enterprises, or as they do business under the name Assured Self-Storage. The cases relate to a 12.2 acre site that's identified in red, roughly at the corner of Northern and 87th Avenue in southern Peoria. In the minor general plan amendment, the applicant is seeking to amend the designation for a portion of the overall acreage, and I'll describe that in a minute. And in the rezone application, the applicant is seeking to rezone the entire site into a development program that would include a self-storage facility on a portion of the site and future single-family residential on the balance of the site. Okay, a little bit about the site context there. The site is identified in the dotted red line there. It looks like a flag, right? It's got a flagpole and the flag portion. Just contextually to the north is a 325-foot wide SRP overhead power line corridor. Working yourself east across 85th Avenue, about a half dozen larger lot, 1 acre plus lots in an unincorporated portion of Maricopa County. To the south of that is the Harvest Church. Directly south of the, let's say, the flag portion of the flagpole is a regional City of Peoria retention basin. South of Northern is another portion of unincorporated Maricopa County. And then to the west of the site is the Brighton Charter School. So what I'm looking to illustrate to you here, this is just a zoom in on the property, but if you focus your attention on the flagpole portion of the property. It's about 156 feet wide, so it's very narrow and very deep. It's almost a quarter-mile deep. And that property, also with the Brighton Charter School to the west and the vacant parcel to the west as well, those parcels were all subdivided and zoned commercial back in the early 1980s, but makes for a very difficult parcel to develop. You can imagine preferably it would have been nice if the parcels were consolidated as one development parcel. That didn't happen that way. Brighton Charter School developed in 2001, creating the scenario we have here, which are two very difficult parcels to develop. The other portion of the site, the flag portion of it, is a property that was recently auctioned by the Maricopa County Flood Control District. So that property, the Assured Self-Storage, they were the winning bidder for that property. And then in purple or blue, that just shows you what the property extent looks like. In terms of the development program, Parcel A, or the portion on the west that's in white, that is a gated self-storage RV facility. It includes up to 895 storage units. And then on the northern part of that property, they would have 39 covered RV spaces, along with 56 outdoor covered RV spaces. The access to the site would be from Northern Avenue, and that would occur through a deceleration lane leading to an office which is at the far southern portion of Northern. I will mention that this portion of the property, there is a developer Assured Self-Storage that intends to build here. The other portion of the property, which is Parcel B, would have a development program for future single family. I should note there is not a builder in tow right now, so it would be future single family development. What's being proposed there would be up to 12 single family lots that would yield a density of about 2.5 units per acre. The minimum lot size identified at 10,000 square feet with some open space considerations. In terms of access, particularly for Parcel A, because that's the portion that has a developer, the secondary access, or I should say the fire access rather, that would occur through Parcel B. There's a fire access lane. I know it's hard to see on the graphic, but essentially it leads from the mini storage to the cul-de-sac that then takes you down out to 85th and down to Northern. So that fire access would be required as part of the mini storage development. All of the road frontage improvements for Parcel B, which would be future, would occur at the time of that development, when that plat comes in for consideration. This graphic is intended just to illustrate some of the buffer considerations. So if you're starting at Parcel B, the single family, the portion along 85th, there's a 30-foot buffer intended to provide a kind of a soft entry into development, if you will. Separating the mini storage from the future residential, an 80-foot buffer there, and then a landscape buffer of 50 feet along the southern portion of the mini storage down to 10 feet, so to kind of soften the wall, the exterior partition of the mini storage. And this is a perspective of the mini storage as seen from Northern Avenue. Okay, 19R. This is a minor general plan amendment, and the applicant is seeking, I mentioned, to redesignate a portion of the overall 12.2 acres. And the reason it's a portion of the site, they would redesignate just the part that would be the mini storage component. The component that's Parcel B, that's residential, already complies with today's general plan. The density they're proposing would be in line with the general plan. In terms of the area around it, you can see the yellow color. That's low density residential, 2 to 5 units per acre is what the general plan prescribes there. However, when you note the conditions on the ground, I indicated that the 3 very narrow parcels are all zoned commercial. They're difficult to build. They've been in place like that since the 80s. The general plan doesn't really reflect the conditions on the ground. So this proposal would be consistent with the neighborhood commercial designation, which denotes areas for small lot or small scale sites. Within context, that's just a word to mean that through the PAD, which is the rezone portion, we can tailor the standards to fit in with the area. And here's 20R. This illustrates the zoning in the area. And as I indicated, the flagpole portion of it, Zone C1, which is convenience commercial. The former flood control piece, Parcel B, is zoned general agricultural. You can see some of the zoning in the area in the county, rural 43, which is 1 acre lots. To the south in the county, also 1 acre lots. And then west of 87th, R18, 8,000 square foot lots in the city. Again, as I mentioned, with the PAD, Planned Area Development, this is a type of zoning district that we can tailor the standards. We can modify the buffer requirements, we can modify the heights, and so forth. And so in this regard, indicated a development program that would be proposed for the site. Parcel A would be limited to self-storage facility with the buffers that I indicated for you. Parcel B would be denoted just for single-family residential with the minimum lot size prescriptions that I identified. As we see this, the single-family portion, in context, provides a good transition, separating itself from the commercial zoning of the mini storage in the area to the west, along with the larger lots east of 85th Avenue there. As you know, we do require notification that's provided. We provide notification when we get the application in, and also when it's time to go to hearing. We send postcards out to all properties within a 600-foot radius and all registered HOAs within a mile. Through the life of the application, we have not received any correspondence in support or opposition to the proposal. However, we do require that a neighborhood meeting be held, and there was one held back in November 3rd at the Peoria Community Center. Excuse me, there were 7 attendees plus staff and the council representative from that district. Some of the things we heard from that neighborhood meeting, in the 7 attendees, I should say, 5 of them were from the county areas, the larger lots east of 85th, and 2 were south of Northern Avenue. But there was a preference for larger lots. Certainly they would like to see lots about an acre in size, but I think they would be happy with half acre or larger. They were concerned about what a smaller lot would impact on property values and traffic generation from residential. As I indicated, when the future case came in for the single family, that's when all the improvements would be required. There was some concern about whether those improvements would be borne by the developer or by the residents in the area, and just to confirm, that would be borne by the developer. They would be responsible for those improvements. And that would include, of course, all the half-street improvements that would be required along the frontage, along with the emergency access down to 85th Avenue. The item was heard by the Planning and Zoning Commission in January. There were no speakers present from the general public, and after deliberation of that case, the Commission unanimously recommended approval of the case. So what are the key findings? If we talk about the minor general plan amendment, I mentioned that the land use designation change would correspond and align with the underlying commercial zoning that's been in place for a while. The redesignation also accounts for the odd shape, which makes those parcels very difficult to develop and better reflects the development needs in the area. In terms of the rezone, the PAD standards have been tailored to maximize compatibility. We believe the PAD would then conform to the general plan, and through the scale of the proposal would not unduly impact or burden public facilities in the area. So Mayor and Council, with that, our recommendations are for 19R, it would be to concur with the Planning and Zoning Commission, to redesignate 7.5 acres from low-density residential to neighborhood commercial, and then with the companion rezone case, 20R, concur with the Planning and Zoning Commission and rezone the entire parcel from convenience commercial and general agricultural to planned area development subject to conditions 1 through 9. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Thank you. Council, are there any questions for Mr. Hawkes? Ms. Hunt?
Chris, I don't have any questions. I want to say that this is a really good plan. This, as Chris referred to, the pole of the flagpole, that has been such a hard little strip of property to sell, to move, to inhabit, and this is an absolutely perfect plan for it. It's perfect for the neighborhood, and these are some of the nicest people that I've ever worked with in terms of planning and listening and wanting to do what the city wanted them to do for this. So I really congratulate staff, and I recommend moving forward with it.
Okay, any further comments? All right, this is a public hearing, and I declare this public hearing open. Are there any members of the public who would like to make any comments on items 19R or 20R? We can do both of those public comments together. Seeing none, I declare this public hearing closed. Council, any further comments? Do I have a motion? All right, we have a motion and Do I have a second?
Second.
And a second on item 19R. This is the minor general plan amendment, assured self-storage, 85th Avenue and Northern Avenue. We have a motion and a second. Please vote. And it passes unanimously. And we will move on to item 20R. This is rezoning, assured self-storage, 85th Avenue and Northern Avenue. Do I have a motion? And a second?
Second.
Council, please vote. And it passes unanimously. Thank you. We will now move to the Vistancia West Community Facilities District Board meeting. This is the consent agenda, and it consists of two items: the approval of the minutes of the November 22nd, 2016 special meeting, and the acceptance of the investment report, quarter ending December 31st, 2016. Board members, are there any items to be removed from consent? Seeing none, do I have a motion on the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second. Board, please vote. And the consent agenda passes unanimously. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is call to the public on non-agenda items. If you wish to address the City Council, please complete a speaker request form and place it in the bin next to the speaker's podium. I do have some requests to speak. And when I call your name, please come down to the podium and state your name and address for the record, and you have 3 minutes. Mr. James Deibler.
Hello, hi, I am James Deibler. I live in Phoenix, Arizona. I am going to school at Arizona State University. My major is public service and public policy. I graduated from Glendale Community College with my associate in general studies and photography certificate. Today, I show you the demonstration about text to read on your iPhone.
Speech to the City of Peoria, February 21st, 2017. Hello, I'm James Deibler. I am going to school at Arizona State University. I graduated from Glendale Community College with my associate degree and photography certificate. I know the Peoria economy is growing at a fastest rate than other cities in the nation. Peoria is doing a good job on reviving downtown Peoria with new small businesses will help the economy to grow. The Peoria Entertainment District on 83rd Avenue and Bell Road need entertainment to bring customers to the Arrowhead shopping area. I would like to see Glendale and Peoria Dial-A-Ride to merge with Northwest Valley Dial-A-Ride in order to improve ADA transportation. Finally, the West Valley leaders in the state Senate will stop using taxpayers' money to build Arizona Coyotes Sports Arena in the East Valley. We should use taxpayers' money to fund education for college students and low-income elderly people, not millionaire sports owners. Thanks for your time and consideration.
Yeah, that text to read will help people with disabilities if they have difficulties to read. Thanks for the time and consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Deibler. All right, Eric McMorrow. Please state your name and address for the record. You have 3 minutes.
My name is Eric McMorrow, 11310 North 80th Drive. Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Eric McMorrow, again, as I stated. I am Vice President of AFSCME 3282 here, representing the employees of the public workers here at town. My time here tonight is to thank council, management, and city staff in working with AFSCME on many different issues to help create a working environment that consists of more cooperation and respect. In the time that Walter and I have had leadership of the union, it has been gratifying to build lines of communication and work to resolve issues that arise as we learn of them. Deputy Director Jeff Tyne, Human Resources Director Laura Kraus, Public Works Utility Director Stuart Kent, and Police Chief Minter are just a few members of management who have listened to some of our concerns and worked with us towards solutions. Resolutions in sanitation, courts, and dispatch are just a few examples of departments that are benefiting from our mutual goals, and for that, I would like to say thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that. And Cassidy Getro? Well, Cassidy, when you come up, would you please pronounce your name for us? State your name and address for the record, please. You have 3 minutes.
Cassidy Gatris, 8940 West Olive Avenue, Unit Number 6, Peoria, Arizona. Good evening, Mayor Kathy Carlett, members of the council, and members in the community. As the City of Peoria's Youth Advisory Board member, I would like to say thank you to Council Member Carlo Rocky Leone and his assistant, Mrs. Karen Halstead. They attended the City of Peoria's Youth Advisory Board meeting that was held on Tuesday, February 14th, 2017. They also provided dinner to all of the City of Peoria's Youth Advisory Board members that were in attendance that evening. Also, I would like to thank the keynote speakers who took time out of their schedules to come and speak at the meeting. Thank you to the Peoria Unified School District Governing Board, Ms. Kathy Connect, Ms. Bobby Sudsbury with Katie's Way, and Ms. Colleen Geary with Bloom 365. All of their presentations were very powerful and moving. They conveyed the tools and knowledge into every City of Peoria Youth Advisory Board member. I would also like to thank Councilmember Ms. Vicki Hunt for giving the Youth Advisory Board members an opportunity to volunteer at the Domestic Violence Conference. The conference was held on Saturday, January 21st, 2017. Being a volunteer at the Domestic Violence Conference, the Youth Advisory Board members were able to meet amazing people who created programs that cater towards a variety of age groups, especially for the youth. That conference, we were able to have keynote speakers such as Katie's Way and Bloom 365. Many of my peers shared their life-altering experiences. Many came to me and disclosed to me their traumatic situations that they have endured. For so many of them, having to relive that experience, especially after the dust has settled, they were unsure if it would create a rift once again in their families. For them, explaining to a peer in confidence was easier for them to explain to their family as well. It brought tears to my eyes and a need to help. I'd like to utilize my platform and be the voice for my peers and advocate for them. As a member, we were chosen to be the voice for the youth throughout the City of Peoria. I am honored that I was given the opportunity to meet amazing people and be introduced to their programs that they have created. Now I am able along to pass information about resources to my peers so they can take advantage and get the necessary help needed. In closing, I want to thank an amazing group of people who have all contributed and guided me as a Youth Advisory Board member and who all deserve to be recognized. So I would like to say thank you to Mr. George Colebrook, Mr. Steve Richardson, Mr. Kevin Naughton, Mrs. Karen Halstead, Councilman Carlo Rocky Leone, and Councilman John Edwards. Lastly, I would like to thank my mom, my dad, my sisters, and my family who have been there every step of the way and who continue to mentor and guide me so I am able to flourish. Thank you.
Thank you very much for those comments. Well, we will now move on to reports from the city manager. Hope you don't have much pressure to follow that.
Well, tough act to follow, I must say. Just a couple of brief announcements under my report, and Chris Hawkes is back with the first one to give us an update on the general plan process. Chris?
All right. How about we follow with talking about the general plan update? No. Mayor and Council, I'm pleased to give you a brief report about the general plan. This is a very important project for the city. We're embarking on a 10-year update, a major update to our general plan. This is something that the state of Arizona requires that we take a general plan to the voters at least every 10 years. It's unique in that we're the only state in the country that requires it. So it's a very important thing. We haven't modified our general plan comprehensively really since 2000. So this is a really important endeavor for us as we look out to the future, try to understand some of the trends that are occurring, not only with demographics, but with development trends, and try to understand what our path of growth will be in the future. So it's a very, very important thing. So what is a general plan? Just real briefly, a general plan is the city's foundational document guiding growth and development in the city. And a lot of times we focus on the land use plan, as you see on the wall, but the general plan is much more than that. There's 17 required elements, and it's everything from land use to transportation, economic development, and so forth. So there's a number of categories that, or a number of topics that encompass the general plan document. So back in, I'm not intending for you to see this in detail, but just wanted to illustrate that we're very early on in the process in terms of our general plan update. We hired Matrix Design Services in December. We've been trying to mobilize very quickly. We have been in the project startup phase. We are working on a few endeavors. If you look at if you can kind of see the red lines that go down the chart, that's about where we are in the process. We're intending to get the general plan complete and to the council mid-year next year for potentially a late November or late 2018 public vote. But there's a lot of work to do in the meantime. And as you can imagine, the next period throughout the summer and really through the rest of the year, there's going to be a lot of public outreach components. And so I wanted to brief you on a few of those that we're embarking on now. So the project branding, we're branding the project under Plan Peoria AZ. So we have a URL that we've established. It's going to be a website that is going to be hosted by the consultant that we can disperse information to the public. It'll also be a platform that we can use to collect information through surveys and just store information to direct our citizens to it. So we'll have that under planpeoriaz.gov. We're finalizing that website. It's not quite available yet, but we'll let you know as soon as that's available. I anticipate it being done in the next few weeks or so. We conducted some stakeholder interviews last week. We interviewed most of the mayor and council. I appreciate your time on that. We are forming what we're calling a general plan advisory committee, and I'll identify those. Also, our other outreach components, just a mix of things. There's formal workshops that we're going to hold, informal workshops. We'd like to supplement the consultant effort for outreach and trying to get out in the community. As I indicated in a past meeting, I think people access government differently today, and so our expectation should not be that we have a couple of meetings and see who shows up. We're going to get out in the community, and we're going to try to supplement the consultant effort. If there's any HOA meetings you'd like me to attend to provide information on the general plan, I'd be happy to do that. Certainly get out to some of our events that we have in the community, whether they're community events or what have you. But anyway, we'll be posting and publishing all that information through our website and also through the council office as well. We formed a general plan advisory committee, and this is a committee that's comprised of several boards and commissions that are involved in many aspects of growth and development, and includes the Deer Valley and Peoria Unified School District. These are citizens that have volunteered to be on the boards and commissions. They devote their time. They've demonstrated their interest in the city, and I think why not use them and as a sounding board as we move along with the general plan. There'll be several times during the development of the plan that we'll want to come back and get their feedback on the direction that it's going. You can see all the boards and commissions that are identified up there. Everyone through the Arts Commission, Planning Commission, Youth Advisory Board. So we wanted to make it as broad as possible and also bring in the school districts. We're also going to have an internal technical committee, and that's more of some of the departments that are involved in a lot of those, and you can see a list of all those departments that will be involved in that. So we'll have two committees that will run simultaneously that will look at different aspects of the questions and the information as we develop it. One of the products that we're producing is what we're calling a map atlas, and so this is a collaboration effort. We've collaborated with the Arizona State University School of Public Affairs, the Marvin Andrews Fellows. These are students that are in their master's program, and they aspire to one day be in city governance. And so they're helping us on this effort. And what we're doing is we're developing a background report or a map atlas. This is an example that you see on the screen that the consultant's doing for the city of Buckeye right now. do a similar product for us, but it has information about the community. It's a community profile or snapshot, everything from land use to income stratification to information about our demographics and all kinds of things. And so we're gonna put it together in a way that's interesting to look at, that's colorful, that will try to identify and provide some of the major key points of that. And I think you can see that the way it's laid out. So we have the Marvin Andrew Fellows from ASU helping us accumulate that information and analyzing the information so that we can then put it in a form like you see above that can be easy to read. So some of the next steps, some of the milestones, we conducted some stakeholder interviews last week. As I indicated, the project website should be ready pretty soon. We're going to be going in front of our Planning and Zoning Commission March 2nd. Also, the Youth Advisory Board, it's not on here, but we're going to be going in front of them the end of February to give them information about the general plan. Our initial TAC and GPAC meetings are going to be March 13th. That'll be our kickoff meeting. Our first community workshop, and that'll be a community workshop that's devoted really to visioning, will be held on 3 days on 3 parts of the city. So we'll have a workshop in southern, central, and northern Peoria. You can see the dates there on the screen. The map atlas we anticipate being done in June sometime. And then, as I indicated, there are several levels where we'll have community outreach components. We'll be going pretty hard in the next few weeks, but throughout the rest of the year. So wanted to leave you with that, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you. Council, any questions or comments? I'm really interested to see the map atlas. That looks like really great information and put in a compelling way that we can look at it. It makes Peoria look really important, as we are.
That's right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. The next item will be a presentation by Deputy Police Chief Pena on homeless outreach that's going on in our police department.
Good evening, Mayor, Council.
Chief.
Mr. Swenson. I just wanted to provide a brief update on some of our efforts dealing with homeless and also an update on our crisis intervention program. In February of 2016, on the back end of a countywide homeless count, we began contacting our individuals that we had had numerous contacts with, both in terms of some of the panhandlers as well as homeless camps under the 101 bridge and in other washes. We sent 2 supervisors out that were essentially detailed just to contact them and find out what type of individual we were dealing with, whether it was substance abuse or mental health. And throughout the rest of the year, we were trying to get our program up and running, and finally in October of 2016, Detective Lisa Scott was selected as our crisis intervention training coordinator, and she began to work with a West Valley coalition to bring more training not only to our department, but to all of the West Side police departments, so that we're coordinated, so that as folks move from municipality to municipality, there is consistency. We did an analysis to find out exactly what type of scope we were dealing with, and it found that we had approximately 196 total arrests in 2015 were related to people we would consider to be transient. And many of those were repeat offenders. So several of those individuals were arrested more than one time. Since February of 2016, we've identified 181 individuals who identified as homeless and were contacted with offers of service. We took very little enforcement and offered every type of social service, both medical, any kind of mental health intervention, and substance abuse intervention. During that time, 11 folks were deemed to be incompetent, and we completed petitions, and they were taken as forced involuntary psychiatric treatment. We did have 20 individuals who took voluntary psychiatric treatment or rehabilitation, which is actually quite an accomplishment for us, for officers to go down and convince people to seek treatment in that type of environment. Over the last year, we've been able to make partnerships with everyone listed here. The two large ones are Recovery Innovations. That is a Peoria-based group. That is the location where folks begin the process of evaluation for a mental health crisis. Huge partner with us, and they've been very cognizant of the fact that we have a need to get our officers back on the streets. They have streamlined their process, and essentially when you show up with somebody, you can be in and out and drop someone off in under 5 minutes, which is great. The rest of our partners right here, what's important is we'll be working with all of them on an event over the next couple of days. They will be with us at the Peoria Sports Complex beginning tomorrow as we go out and make initial contact again with several of the folks that we identify as homeless throughout the city. Now, other part of the program is that at some point there has to be some accountability for numerous bad acts. We have accumulated all of the information on each of our contacts, especially when there has been violations of the law. And so far we've been working with our prosecutors and our city courts to identify repeat offenders that would benefit from some kind of enhanced punishment program to hold them accountable, because they have clearly ignored our offers for voluntary assistance. So tomorrow we will offer those folks one last time the opportunity to get some type of treatment, some type of help, and to include relocation, that we have places for folks to go to. We have beds, we have medical treatment that is available, we have psychiatric treatment, we have substance abuse treatment. All of that will be offered. Those that have already been offered and we have charges with on day 2 will be arrested. We hope that number to be minimal, as we believe by also incorporating the partnerships and partners with us on these contacts that we're going to have better success with folks seeking voluntary treatment. And so one of the last acts on day 2 will also include a cleanup of some of the common areas that we've seen that have been havens for urban camping and other illegal activities. It's probably no secret that there's quite a bit of trash that gets accumulated because of folks just living out there in some of the washes in some of our urban parks. So we'll be combating that with a cleanup, and we've had a tremendous amount of support from literally everyone in the city. Every one of the services here, every one of the departments has offered to assist us. Give you an example of just basically what we run into when we go out there. Many of the folks have taken whatever landscaping that's out there, trees, bushes, and they will create small dens and homes that are literally invisible from roadways and some of the walking paths that you'll see out there, but they'll leave the trash behind. So that's one of our efforts, is to, it's not only a sight for sore eyes, so to speak, but there's also a health risk involved. And to give you an example, one of our successes that we had just before Christmas time is Detective Scott had run into a couple that had been living in a dirt lot with a tarp. The husband believed he was facing a severe long-term illness, also had a back injury, was not able to get work here in town. They did accept services. We began working with them both to get medical and some other substance abuse and mental health issues resolved. The husband explained that he wanted to get back to where their family was in Tennessee, so that if anything did happen to him long term, that his wife would be taken care of by family. They just didn't have the means to get back there. And so Detective Scott worked with several of our partners. CCB most notably donated plane tickets, and our Citizens Academy alumni group has just started some of their fundraising efforts. They stepped up and assisted us in getting bus tickets for them from the airport. Uber donated some free rides, and Riaz, Recovery Innovations, put them up in temporary housing until we could make those arrangements to get them there. can't tell you how important it is to have Detective Scott identified, isolated, and working on these issues literally one-on-one with some of our folks that are in need. So we're hoping after the next couple of days we can bring back to you dozens of these types of success stories. And I'm available for any questions.
Council? Councilmember Binsbacher?
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to say congratulations. This is fantastic. This homeless outreach and the work that you're doing, and a lot of, not a popular subject that a lot of people want to talk about or cities want to address, but it's so important that we do, and I really appreciate hearing all of this. This is fantastic. And Detective Scott, you said, is dedicated to this particular program, or is this a new position within the department?
It was a new position that we wanted to isolate, so that is her primary job function is handling these type of situations, as well as coordinating all of our crisis intervention training. So she's got an impact on ensuring that each patrol squad, our mandate is essentially to get at least one CIT trained officer on every squad, and then we'll start building up from there. Our ideal goal is at least two, so we're well on the way to getting everybody trained.
Do you find that mental illness is part of this training, or you're seeing a lot of that, and maybe how to work with that on the street?
The training is based on how to communicate effectively with people in crisis. So that's why it's so important to have that on each of the squads at that level. It's a perishable skill, so it's much like if we try to get everybody trained, I don't know if we could keep everybody at a acceptable level of proficiency. But with the group that we're focused on, number one, they have to be committed to wanting that training and working with folks. But it allows our individual officers, when they see somebody in crisis, to immediately recognize signs of mental health issues, or perhaps autism, substance abuse, and to speak to those folks in a way that takes that crisis down a notch until we can get other resources there. Our goal is to not provoke a confrontation, but to actually get folks to voluntarily see that they need assistance.
Fantastic. Thank you. It's great.
Vice Mayor Edwards?
Thank you, Mayor. I have to concur with Councilman Binsbacher. I've watched firsthand your program, and what you're doing is thoughtful and caring for these people, and they now have a voice that they can come to. They don't have to fear the police department. They know that you guys are there to help them, and I think that says a lot for you guys and a lot for the city of Peoria, that we're willing to help residents in need. And so I commend you and your department. I know that you're working closely with Glendale as well, since we are so close, because we don't want to move them along to another city and make them somebody else's problem. We're really trying to capture their problem and help them along the way. And shining examples is able to reunite families. I mean, what better success story can you focus on than that? So again, just my compliments to you. Thank you.
Councilmember Patena?
Thank you, Mayor. Chief, I just have a couple questions. One is, generally speaking, I think most homeless people just want to be left alone. But my question is, how many of the homeless people do you think are actually contributing to crime in Peoria?
Well, I would say that, judging by the numbers of the number of homeless that we have been contacted with that have been arrested, that it's a major contributor.
Okay.
Especially when you have the cleanup area. There's no coincidence that we find many objects that we believe have been taken, either in theft, shopliftings, or burglaries. They're unidentifiable objects, but they don't make any sense for being in a wash with somebody down there, and clearly they don't have the means to purchase some of those items. So that's part of our ongoing property crimes efforts, is try to get folks to help us identify some of their items so we could return it to them. But there's clearly a connection.
Okay. And my second question is, how many homeless people do you think are in Peoria that are under the age of 18?
Well, so far, we have not contacted anyone in these conditions that were under 18. We did have a family that we contacted that was essentially on the run, bouncing from place to place in camps with a 12-year-old. We were able to intervene and place that child in a safe environment. We do work closely with the PUHD or SD, I'm sorry, on working with homeless issues with some of those kids, but that issue deals more with children that are displaced and they go from friend to friend. We have not seen a overwhelming amount of kids out there that don't have support. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right. Thank you so much for the work that you're doing. We sincerely appreciate it.
Great presentation. Thank you, Betty. Appreciate that. The last item I have is a video that we'll be showing as a precursor to spring training starting. As the council's well aware, we're starting early this year, next Saturday, the 25th, and today the kickoff for the new Cove play structure, and play structure hardly does it justice. It's such a wonderful play area for kids. It was kicked off today. So with that, you can run the video.
Hey, you guys, Corey McCloskey here from Fox 10. You're sitting in the stands. You could be over here at the shipyard with us. Check it out.
Catch this year's spring training action at the Peoria Sports Complex, February 25th through March 31st. For tickets and game information, visit peoriaspringtraining.com.
And I'm sure we'll see you all there Saturday at the charity game.
Yes, you will. And we have outdone ourselves this time. All right, we're going to now move on to reports from the City Council and start with Youth Council Liaison Edwards.
Thank you, Mayor. I had the pleasure of attending the grand opening of the Cove at the Peoria Sports Complex, and this is just such an awesome place for the kids to play. It's so cool. It makes me a little bit jealous that I'm too old to play on it. I'm also so excited for spring training to start. It's my favorite time of the year, and I'm so glad my city offers that to do, and we're so fortunate to have that. I also want to thank my fellow Youth Advisory Board member, Ms. Cassidy Gatrost, for coming to speak tonight. She's such an amazing part of our board, and her commitment to our board is it's so astounding, to say the least. She's such a great part of it, and just thank you so much for coming up to speak tonight and for all you do for our board. And that's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Patena.
Thank you, Mayor. Last week I had the opportunity to meet with the people at Desert Harbor. Apparently they were making several calls to the Peoria Police Department. They were experiencing some high crime and car thefts and a number of other things, and they started to get a little nervous about whether or not they were safe. And so Commander Steele kind of did a proactive thing and decided to have a meeting with them. 152 people, I think, showed up, which was a pretty large crowd. Talked to them about panhandling, homeless issues, and what they could do to prevent crime in their area. It was a real proactive contribution from our police department, and I was happy to attend that. It seemed like the people were very happy with the results. This morning, I also had an opportunity to go to the sports complex and see the opening of the new Cove, the playground and splash pad for children. What an amazing fan experience we have now for people of all ages, children to adults. And I've been to most of the parks in the Cactus League, and I can honestly say that I believe that Peoria is the best park. If not the best, it's one of the top two. It's completely been refreshed. It's certainly not the same park that it was 20 years ago, and I think it's something that we should all be very proud of. And I hope that whoever's listening, I hope they have a chance to get out there for spring training and see the amazing field that these athletes play on. And today I was looking for a weed or just a piece of dirt, and you just couldn't find it. It's an absolutely perfect field. So I hope you have a chance to go out and see the game. And then I had an opportunity last week to meet with Chris Hawkes and two of his consultants regarding the general plan. It was a kind of a difficult experience, but it was very interesting. They asked me for my ideas on where the city's going to be 30 years from now. How do we plan on dealing with millennials? How do we see the development of our communities in the future? Issues that the city is dealing with now and what we're going to be dealing with 30 years from now. And I was glad that they wanted to hear some of my thoughts and ideas, and I was happy to participate in that. So that's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Binsbacher.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, regarding the general plan meetings, thank you for making us part of that. And more importantly, thank you for your commitment on the public outreach. I think that's very, very important. However I can help make that happen for you, I'll keep that in mind and encourage that every step of the way. General Plan 2040 is kind of scary when you actually read that, though. But it's a big responsibility, so it deserves the attention we're giving it. Gosh, let's see. Cassidy Katros, thank you for being here today and doing such a great job presenting. It just represents the youth so well, and it reminds us when we hear from all of you young folks why we do what we do and how important it is to serve and set a good example and try to maximize potential for the next generation and invest in the next generation. And provide you with all the opportunity we can. Thank you for being here today and sharing. I also want to remind the citizens about the redistricting. Encourage everyone here, everyone watching, to get online and submit your maps. And please take part in shaping these districts. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Edwards.
Thank you, Mayor. Last week I had the opportunity to attend the ribbon cutting for our new ambulance service, and what a great event that was. We now control our ambulance in the city of Peoria. Citizens now have a peace of mind that fire and ambulance are combined together, and we are providing a single, seamless amenity to all the residents, and so I'm so thankful for the chief for inviting us out to that great event. The general plan, Chris, it was interesting to talk to you and to your staff about it. Like Councilman Bensbacher said, 2040. I wasn't even thinking up until 2040, but when you started talking about bringing and engaging the youth, I think that is so important because this is their city as well, and so finally they're going to have a hand in shaping this city the way it should be shaped. So I commend you and Cassidy. Words can't even say. Your speech was so eloquent, and watching your sisters, I believe there's your sisters over there shaking their heads and giving you the thumbs up while you were speaking is awesome. And so you are a great role model for them, and so I hope that they follow in your footsteps. Again, spring training is here, and I just encourage everybody to come out. You know, we have the largest screen in the Cactus League. 4G, and I was out there today. That thing is amazing, and I look forward to watching instant replays and all the stats on that board. So thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Finn.
Thank you very much. Just a couple of comments, Cassidy. I'm going to reiterate what everyone else has said. That was an amazing speech that you gave there. And Mom, thank you for having her come out and allowing her to do the things that she does. And you actually stayed longer than some of the other participants in here. You stayed the entire thing. So thank you for that. Greatly appreciated. Redistricting tool, we also want to mention that as well. You know, that's kind of big on my list, and I'm going to put the challenge out there to knock my plan off of the top #1 slot. Okay? I challenge you to do that. So I kind of got some inside information. I'm sitting at #1. Anyways, general plan, Chris, thank you for the involvement in there. It just amazes me how much the city staff knows about planning and running a city. You're going to forget more than I'll probably ever learn. So thank you for all that you guys do. And then I want to end on a thank you, and it might sound not positive right off the bat, but it is a positive. You know, we had a couple of things happen in our school district here locally in the past couple of days that are kind of frightening. Centennial High School and a couple other schools had some issues out there that were pretty frightening if they turned into what they potentially had the potential to be. And our police department has such an amazing working relationship with our local school district. I think it was amazing what the reaction that happened there, the fact that nothing did take place. And I read some of the emails that came from the school district about how well the two entities work together. And I want to thank the school district for working so well with our police department. I want to thank the police department for working so well with the school district. And in my mind, there are very few things that I could possibly think of that are more important than the kids in our community. So it really warmed my heart to see how well that turned out and how well everyone worked together and put those kids at the absolute highest priority and made sure that everybody was safe. My daughter is at one of those schools when all of that happened, and if you don't know, the district tells the kids to text your parents. You know, we don't need a big onslaught of people calling the city and a big onslaught of people calling because they're going to get frustrated they can't get through. They use technology, get a hold of your parents. It's kind of odd to come out of a meeting and see a text message from your daughter that simply says, "I'm safe." I don't know what the hell that means, but I'm going to find out real quick. So great reaction. I appreciate more than you know how well that all turned out and how well everybody responded. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Councilmember Leone.
Yeah, the first thing I want to say is that I'm not going to say too much about Cassidy because I don't want to give her a big head. And she lives in my district. She's a great kid, and someday you're going to see her sitting up here. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to just go on and say thank you, Cassidy, and your family. On February 16th, I went to a river cutting at Station 1 to see the new ambulance, and they were just great. To my understanding, they have 2 new ambulances on the road and 1 in reserve. And today, when I was coming back from the sports complex, I saw one of those ambulances go by. I think it was one of them because it looked like it. And I saw one go by, and they were just doing their job, and they looked great. And now we get our own ambulance. Been a long time coming. On Saturday, February 18th, I went to a graduation in Glendale for the recruits, and we had 4 of them from Peoria: Matthews Bennett, Connor Pearson, Raphael Rendon, and Evan. I'm going to mess the name up, but I think it's 2 men. Raphael Rendon won an award. Pike Pole Award. I have no idea what that is. But it was a great ceremony, and it's a shame that we can't get more of our council people down there to congratulate them and show them that we give them that support for being a firefighter in Peoria. Again, I want to congratulate the new young firefighters who's coming on to Peoria. Today, I went to the opening on the Cove at the sports complex. Special arena for the kids, water slides, splash pad, and baseball diamond. It was great. The kids had a lot of fun. I was getting tired watching them, but I'm sure when they went home today, their parents and the kids had a good long nap. So I just want to say thank you to the council who put this in the budget and the sports complex for making it happen. God bless each and every one of you, and God bless America.
Thank you. Well, I just want to finish up by saying it's time to play baseball. This Saturday is the first day of spring training, so I hope to see you out at the ballpark. It looks better than ever, and it's great for all of the families here, and it's great for economic development. It's spring training season. With that, we are adjourned.